Okay, AP Stat, it is time for example 5 for histogram shape and measures. Okay, so for this one we're creating a histogram and we're pasting it or hand copying it. It's completely up to you what you want to do. Describe the distribution. This is where we're going to cuss and BS right here. Really, Amy? Wow, out of control. I know my letters, it's just late. Okay, so remember that means we're going to talk about center. This should be unusual. I hate it when I don't catch typos. Unusual value, shape, and spread, and that is most applicable to the data set. So you're going to see what I'm talking about. All right, so to illustrate one of the things I want to illustrate to you, I am going to get into our data set. And I have chosen this data right here for thumb. Remember, you guys had to estimate the length of your thumb or the width of your thumb, I can't remember now, in centimeters. So we're going to use that data, and we're going to go over to Staplet. And I have already put the raw data in, but let me show you, well, here. Let me go back here and let me copy this again so that I can show you what I was doing. Okay, so in Staplet, I'm going to choose one quantitative variable single group, and then I am going to paste my data right in there, and then I'm going to begin my analysis. Now, this is a dot plot, and we're going to look at a histogram. So here's my histogram right here. So as you can clearly see, a lot of people estimated between 5 and 10. But there's something here that I want you to notice that was different about the histogram I gave you in example 4. This time we have our summary statistics right here underneath our graph. So I'm going to go back to my example and I am going to paste that in there for you. Okay, so when we're looking at this graph now, when I'm talking about the summary statistics, I'm talking about this right here. So I put in 95 pieces of data. That's 95 students. So what are the other values and why are they important to me? Okay, let's look at this. The first thing I'm going to talk about, because it's the most important as far as the other things we're going to report, I want to report the shape first. Well, if you'll notice, most of my data is right here, and then it does that. It kind of tapers off to the right. So I am going to say that the estimate of thumb length in centimeters, has a right skewed shape. Could you have said it a million different ways? Yes, you could have said the shape of the distribution of thumb length is approximately right skewed. As you can see from our graph, thumb approximation is right skewed. I mean, there's all different kinds of ways you can say that. So the reason I'm reporting shape first is because it has a huge impact on which center we talk about. Now, I want you to notice that the summary statistics give us both a mean and a median. Those measures are both present, and a good way to think about this is if you were to weigh yourself in the United States, you would weigh yourself in pounds. But if you were to go pretty much anywhere else in the world and weigh yourself, you'd be weighed in kilograms. So those are still measures of you, but they're just in different They're just in a little bit different context. So it's kind of the same thing with mean and median, and I will explain this in a little bit more detail in another video. Okay, so if I'm going to talk about the center now, if I've established that I have a right skew shape, then I want to talk about the center being the median, because the median is less affected by these extreme values out here that don't really go with the rest of the data. So how am I going to report that? I'm just going to say something like this. The distribution has a median of 6 with an IQR of, now the reason I'm saying with a median of 6 and an IQR is a measure of spread. And here's the deal, it's not by happenstance that I chose to talk about the IQR as a measure of center. When I say the median is the measure of center I'm choosing to talk about because it's the best thing to talk about in a skewed set of data, I must refer then to the spread or the variability as the IQR. Median and IQR go together. So if I choose median for center, IQR has to be the measure of spread that I use. So how do we find the IQR? Well, the IQR, of course, is Q3 minus Q1. So since Q3 is 7 and Q1 is 5, my IQR is 2. All right, so that's how I talk about some of those features. And it might help as you're getting used to doing this, make sure you've addressed everything. Have we talked about the center? Yeah, it's got a median of 6. Have we talked about unusual features? Not yet. But have we talked about shape and spread? Yes, we have. All right, so now we're going to address unusual features. Okay, and by the way, unusual features don't necessarily have to be outliers. You can talk about things that are obvious in the data. So, some obvious unusual things in the data. There appear to be some values that are larger than the majority of the data. It seems there may be an outlier between 35 and 40 centimeters. And if you'll talk practically about this, it will do so much for you. For instance, between 5 and 10, most people have the measurement between 5 and 10. And then something to possibly address, see this out here? Why do you think this is happening? Why do you think that there are just a few that are way out there? Because people don't, what? They don't know how big a centimeter is. Look at that. Kids, you're adorable. Enjoy.